Hi everyone, thank you for joining us on today's webinar. My name is Bethany and I'm the Relationship and Engagement Manager here at UMI, and today I'm hosting this webinar for the EM3 Growth Hub. Before we begin, I'd like to give you a little background information on the Growth Hub in case you're new around here. So they are a fully funded business support service providing advice, coaching, webinars and signposting to SMEs. Their mission is to help you recover, adapt and develop sustainable growth and become more productive and profitable. All businesses at any stage of the development can access and benefit from the EM3 Growth Hub services, including support around COVID recovery and UK transition support. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our guest speaker today, Laura Mathieson.
Good morning, everybody. So this morning, we're going to be looking at 6 key points about online selling in 2021. My business focuses on eBay, but we also provide advice for selling generally. And we've seen some interesting changes that have come up. So I'm just going to share my screen. And now we should have the first slide. This is the holding slide that just tells you what we're going to actually be doing. So please do ask questions as we go through the Q&A chat function. And I just want to make one little point, which is the situation with COVID it's so fluid at the moment that there may be 1 or 2 little tiny things that are not appropriate at the moment, but I will highlight those as we go through. They may or may not be appropriate depending on where we are with the COVID regulations. There shouldn't be very many, but there might be 1 or 2 things. So let me just get this up here. Okay, so today we're going to look at, first of all, selling online because it isn't going away. Secondly, Brexit is a really important situation at the moment. Help for sellers who import and export. We're going to look at eBay and Amazon trends. We're going to look at what it means to be customer focused. We're going to look at delivery and a little bit about fulfillment. And finally, social media, because these are the 6 of the most important online selling online trends of 2021. So first of all, we're looking at selling online. So online selling has seen an 11% year-on-year growth, which increased in 2020. Since March 2020, 69% of Brits have regularly shopped online. That's a huge number, 69%. 42% of consumers say they will not return to the high street, and it's convenient with greater choice. So in a little bit more detail there, this research was done in November 2020, so it's only about 2 months old, and it was done by the Royal Mail's annual Delivery Matters study, which looks every year at this kind of thing. So 11% year on year means that, as I said originally, that online selling is simply, it's not going away. It's already been increasing year on year for, I think about 15 years now. So it's the COVID situation has accelerated the state of the growth. This is not a new thing, the increase in e-commerce, but it's just been, the whole thing's been speeded up because so many people had to stay at home. So many businesses were not able to open and therefore had to, I love this phrase, they had to pivot and start selling online when perhaps they hadn't done so before or had only done it as a sideline. So 69% shop regularly. That's a really huge increase, and it's a really huge percentage. And it's obvious why. It's because people couldn't go out to the shops were not open, they had nothing else to do, they were bored, and at the same time there was a significant increase in businesses that were selling more, and that's online, and that's because they had to. So it's a bit of a perfect storm, really, and we shouldn't really be surprised. Apparently, we're now spending the average UK shopper is now spending £83 a month online compared to £75 a month online in 2019. Now, a lot of that, of course, will be taken up by things like regular grocery shopping from Asda and Morrison's and the other supermarkets who did online deliveries. But that doesn't account for the whole amount. So the data shows how COVID-19 has changed shopping behaviours quite probably forever, and has made shopping the new online for many, many consumers. So 42% of consumers have said they will not return to the high street. Some of that is out of fears for their safety. They don't think it's safe. But very many people have discovered the convenience of shopping online. You have such a wider choice. And also you can just return it if you don't like it. You can do everything from your own home. Not for everything. There are some things where people still need where people still need to physically see things. And this is because, for instance, furniture. You would perhaps not buy chairs and sofas online because you'd want to sit in them and make sure that they fitted properly. So, but for most routine purchases, you do get a bigger choice. And as it says, it's more convenient. So 62% of the people surveyed said it was much safer to shop online than it was to shop on the high street, which again is a fairly, I think, obvious thing to say at the moment. So as well as the safety fears of shopping on the high street, 55% of respondents felt that shopping online was quicker, and 52% believed that there was a greater choice for clothes. And one of the things that is often said is that if you, especially with clothes shopping, is that if you can't try it on, then you don't know what it's going to look like. And we've all seen that, even if clothes shopping, even in high street shops that have changing rooms, you can't now use the changing rooms. So you have to take them home and try them on at home and bring them back. And only 2% of those surveyed said that this was a big issue for them, the fact that they couldn't try clothes on in the shops. I find that a very interesting statistic because it's one of the key drivers that your bricks and mortar shops have over the online shopping, is that you can actually touch things, you can try them on, you can see there and then whether or not they work for you. And actually that seems to be now a very, very small advantage. So that's an interesting consideration. So next slide, Brexit. We are still in the middle of Brexit, of course. And what I've got here is customs labels, ERI numbers, importing goods that may have tariffs, the UKCA mark, VAT. And then at the bottom here, I've got 4 links. You're going to get, I believe everybody's going to get a copy of these slides. So these links will take you to some really useful websites that will tell you more about the detail of what you need to do for Brexit. So Amazon has its own Brexit page that it updates very frequently. This is mostly about what you need to do to help to deal with Amazon sales. eBay is the same. The government website, gov.uk transition, that's a really helpful one, and you can narrow down and get very personalised results for your particular circumstance. So if you employ European citizens, for instance, there's a set of rules and regulations. If you import but goods from outside of the EU or within the EU, there are separate regulations. If you export but manufacture within the UK, there are different things to consider, and so forth. So there's a huge amount of information on that website. And then for the Northeast, because I'm in the Northeast, so I've put that one in as well. There's a really useful toolkit, which is obviously has a Northeast focus, but it's also very useful for anybody. And there may well be more information about specific help for your location. So I've got a couple of questions here. One of the questions is selling online is good. However, which platform is good to sell? That's a massive issue, a massive question, and there isn't a simple answer because it depends very much on who you are and what your business setup is. So if you're doing, for instance, handmade items, you might be better off on Etsy. There's really just the three big ones. There's eBay, Amazon, and Etsy. Other way around. Amazon is the biggest by a long, long way. Amazon is the biggest retailer, I think in the world. Anyway, it's very, very big. After that, you've got eBay, which is also enormous, but nowhere near as big as Amazon. And then further down, you've got Etsy, which is way more about handmade stuff, vintage items, and it's an American company. So it's got quite a good American focus, which can work for your business if you can sort of put a British tag on it. If, on the other hand, you are mass producing or mass importing and white labeling cheap things, then you might well be better off on Amazon. As a general rule, eBay is a really good place to start. If you've not sold online before or you're not sure what to do with it, eBay is a great place to start, because whatever you're selling, if you go to Google and type in what it is you're selling, you'll almost always see eBay and Amazon on that first page. They are your competitors if you've got a website. Your own website will usually cost you a lot of money and a lot of time to get set up, and even more money and time to drive traffic to that website. That's the big downside with your own website. Whereas eBay and Amazon kind of filter. So you're not competing with, if you sell on eBay or on Amazon, you're not competing with everybody else on the planet. You're competing with your other sellers on eBay and the other sellers on Amazon. In fact, if you're selling on Amazon, you're also competing often with Amazon itself, and that can be a big disadvantage to selling on Amazon. So I'm afraid the short answer is it depends, but I'm a big believer in starting with eBay. Someone else says, do you use a web developer to build a website, or how do you go about doing this? Personally, I'd be unless you've got big pockets and you've got a sort of a big plan for a huge empire building, I wouldn't normally advise a web developer because it's going to be expensive. And there are some very, very cheap options on the market. Shopify, for instance, or WooCommerce, which will basically plug into your website, or you can have a cheap, you can get a website done for free, but that's possibly going too far down the other end. I think you've got to think about making your money work for you. And especially if you're just starting to sell online, there is so much to learn. It's a very steep learning curve. So I would say keep it simple. Someone else says, would you make a distinction between products and services? Do you feel that services can be sold effectively online, particularly when the end result is seen as a thing? Okay, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's plenty of services that are sold on eBay, not on Amazon. And it's an awkward fit because all the what you call platforms, when I say platforms, I mean eBay, Amazon, Etsy, not on the high street, sort of like online shopping malls where you have a stake in the mall, you have like a little mini shop inside it. They're generally known as platforms or marketplaces or sometimes venues. Any of those places that they don't really fit correctly with services. They are based around selling physical products. That's not to say you can't sort of maneuver it a little bit. So you can do curtain making services, for instance, work really well on eBay. You can sell accountancy services on eBay. And it's about finding a way to do that. So one of my clients sells bespoke staircases, for instance. He never makes a sale on eBay, but he gets a lot of inquiries. So eBay, which is another reason why I like it, can be used as a marketing tool to drive traffic to your website. You need a website though, you need an online presence. And it might be that a website is the best way to go, but it might be that Facebook is the best way to go. If your customers and clients are mostly local, if you make birthday cakes, for instance, then you probably want to be on Facebook. So So customs labels, the way things are now is that you need to put a CN22 label if you're exporting into Europe. That used to be only necessary when you exported outside of Europe, but things have now changed, of course. Couriers, if you use couriers, they may well be helping you with that, but they may not. This is all still really, really new and bedding in. But you almost certainly need to complete a CN22 label if you're going to now post things outside. You might think to yourself, well, I'm not really exporting, I'm just selling the odd thing to Germany. Well, that's exporting. So that's what you now need to do. EORI numbers, this is, I can't remember what it stands for, but you need to, it's a registration number and it's free. And it's easy to get, but you do need an EORI number in a lot of situations now, just in order to export again. Some of this stuff, especially the EORI numbers, the marketplaces are still scrambling to work out how exactly this is going to work. Because technically, if you sell on eBay and you export into Europe, you need an EORI number. At the moment, as I speak, there is no way to enter an EORI number. So, but it's coming. From the 1st of January 2021, importing goods may have tariffs. Exporting goods to other countries may have tariffs. There may also be tax implications. So it's a really big subject, but if you sell anything into Europe or the rest of the world, you have to come up to speed with this and understand what's going on with it. The UKCA mark, this is the mark that is going to replace the CE mark, which you might know, you'll have seen it on loads of different stickers. It's basically the mark that says on electrical items, mostly electrical items, that this is the mark that says that it's been passed, it's been approved for use in Europe and in Europe. So that CE mark is a requirement for just about everything that's sold. From the 1st of January, that's now going to transition into the UKCA mark, which will be a very similar process, except that of course it's now UK because we're not in in Europe anymore. Now, there's a transition time for that. That's not something that has to be done straight away. It has to be done by the end of this year, 2021. And again, that needs to be researched. You don't necessarily have to be manufacturing the electrical goods yourself, but if you import them from another country and then you want to sell them into Europe, my understanding is that you need both marks to start with, and then eventually the UKCA mark on its own. So again, all of that needs looking into. There are VAT questions as well, which you need to check, because if you're selling into Europe, you now may need to be registered for VAT in the countries that you export to. So there's huge amounts of information and things that you need to check and look into. So quite a few of my clients at the moment are simply not selling out of the country. And I've seen recently, just in the last month, that the amount of things for sale on eBay has dropped across a lot, not all sectors, but has dropped across many sectors, because people that are selling into the UK have simply stopped because they don't know what's going on. So very uncertain times. So Brexit is a huge, huge issue at the moment. And as I say, these links you can go and find a lot more information on. Okay, so the next slide. Oh, sorry, somebody's asked me, how do you mitigate Brexit costs, etc., for example, with tariffs? You have to put your prices up. That's as simple as that. Or you take the hit yourself. It depends on your profit margin. Because of course you might not be, depending on the situation, if you put your prices up, you may not then be competitive with other sellers. However, you may not want to take the hit on the profits. There isn't an easy answer to that one, I'm afraid. Okay, so next we've got eBay and Amazon trends. So eBay and Amazon have been big winners in 2020, and they remain on track to continue in 2021. eBay tightens the rules around the new sellers, and Amazon withdraws from Europe. So in order, well, the first thing is that because eBay and Amazon as such, I mean, they're like the colossus of the online selling world, and we can learn a huge amount from what the big people do. So if eBay and Amazon are doing things, it's because their research, and they spend millions of pounds on every year on research about how people buy online, why they stop buying from a particular place. So we can learn what they do, we can learn from. Okay, so 60% of shoppers in 2020 have bought something from eBay and Amazon, 60%, compared to 13% who bought from an independent website. 60%. And this is why, in an ideal world, somebody said earlier about how what platform, where do you start with selling online? And this is why, in an ideal world, your aim is to have your own website eventually, but also to sell on eBay and on Amazon. And this is because there are different groups of buyers that buy just on eBay and just on Amazon, or mainly on eBay and mainly on Amazon. So if you're only selling on eBay, you're missing out on all those people that are only buying on Amazon. And if you only sell on Amazon, you're missing out on all those people who mainly buy on eBay. However, the website, this is why I say start with eBay and or Amazon and or Etsy, and move on to your own website, because only 13% of people are moving on to independent websites. I actually do another webinar about why that is and selling online generally. Somebody's asking more about customs labels and UKCA marks. You really need to go and have a look at the links that I've got on the previous slide, because that goes into a lot more detail. Okay, so eBay and Amazon, I've lost track here. Where are we? So eBay had really helped out the British government way back in March, because they helped to design a PPE portal, which got logistically, it got goods to the people that needed it, the care homes and the medical people that needed, when there was a shortage right at the very beginning, which was pretty cool, actually. And they also put in place, along with Amazon, restrictions on, and actually with Google as well, restrictions on masks and sanitizers and various things that people were trying to sell. Some of our clients had been selling PPE equipment for decades, and they couldn't get onto eBay because the rules were so tight. And I've been approached many times in the last 12 months by people that want to start selling sanitizers and face masks on eBay, and they simply can't get on. Having said that, you can buy, there are millions of people selling, not millions, there are thousands of people selling face masks. It's just not in the right category, which is a bit of a workaround. So eBay has also tightened, and Amazon, but eBay is specifically, I've noticed it, have tightened their rules around new sellers. It's now not as simple and straightforward as it used to be to start selling on eBay. And this is because, as far as eBay is concerned, there was this sudden influx of both buyers and sellers starting in March. And the sales figures just went woof like that, big peak. So eBay can afford to be, and has to be, more restrictive in who they allow. So now, if you're going to sell as a business, you have to provide proof that you are a business, that you have proof of ID very often, depending on the sector. And also, you're not allowed to advertise for the first couple of months. So that's pretty interesting. And Amazon is no longer moving goods to Europe on behalf of its sellers. So that means that you now, if you, at one time, you would send all your goods to Amazon in the UK, and Amazon would transport them to Europe so you could fulfill orders in Europe. And that, not in every circumstance, but generally, that's not happening now, because the laws have changed so much with Brexit. And that's something, again, to consider. It's not as a straightforward thing anymore. And someone's asking about how does one sell on Amazon and eBay, and how does one distribute products to customers? Again, that's a huge, huge subject, and unfortunately it's outside the remit of this particular webinar. Just coming back briefly to what I said earlier about how we can learn from eBay and Amazon, this other research has showed that when asked about what influenced their buying decisions, 44% of customers said reviews. Now, this is something that if you've already got a website that you can learn from, that you can take note of, because getting reviews on your website is actually really straightforward. There's all sorts of plugins and software and so forth that you can do with that. And now we know that 44% of customers said that reviews are really important. This is a rise from 28% when Channel Advisor asked more than 1,000 consumers the same question in May 2020. So in just 6 months, that's been a 16% increase in people who value reviews. And this may well be linked to the fact that they can't actually go out and pick things up and look at them. So they're relying very much more on other people's opinions. 78% said price played a role, and that's an increase from 70% in May. So that may also again reflect the fact that people are, there's a lot of economic uncertainty and people are worried about money. So price has become more important. That's not to say it is the single most important factor, because usually with retail, people are more concerned that the brand and the quality is correct. Price plays a part, obviously, but it depends on the item. You don't necessarily need to be the very cheapest in what you're selling. Okay, so delivery and fulfillment. So the 4 biggest things are speed, problems, tracking, and options. So speed remains a major factor. With recent research, I think this was Citizens Advice, they did some research on this, 43% saying it was an important consideration. But the most important consideration consistently tends to be, and this is not the same piece of research, this is a different piece of research, but the main consideration is that people don't necessarily need the item to be delivered the very next day. What they want is for it to be consistently, what they want is clarity. They want to know, when will the item be delivered? They want to know, is there a morning or an afternoon? Ideally, is there a slot? All of these things cost, of course, but it's an interesting observation that they don't necessarily want it to be the next day. They do want it to be what you've said it's going to be. So that means getting, if you like, the basics right. Make sure that you send the right item to the right address and that it arrives when you said it's going to be arriving. There's been there was a trend some time ago to put free gifts in. This was particularly apparent on eBay, and you'd sometimes get a packet of sweets or a bookmark or something as a free gift. And the research there showed actually this didn't work. It was not a good use of time. What people wanted was, they didn't want the sweets, they wanted to get what they'd ordered. So that's a really interesting bit of research. It was Citizens Advice. So the research by Citizens Advice found that 47% of adults in Britain had issues with the parcel delivery service since the first lockdown in March. And the report found complaints about parcel deliveries made to Citizens Advice had trebled since the coronavirus pandemic, when shoppers were going on online platforms. Now, some of that, I think, is certainly around a big percentage of these buyers were new buyers. So these were people who'd never been online before, and they didn't know what to expect. And often they were disillusioned. If you buy a lot online, you know that late deliveries, things not turning up, things arriving damaged and broken, bits missing. This is just par for the course, unfortunately. You're going to get a percentage of things that are simply not good enough. However, if you're a new buyer, then you don't necessarily know that and understand that. And I think that's that explains quite a lot of that research. So Citizens Advice said that it had received 3 times as many calls about delivery issues since March. 3 in 10 people said that they had a parcel arrive late. 24% said their experience of a delivery issue has affected their confidence when ordering goods, which kind of comes back to that other point about getting it right, getting the basics right. So tracking is pretty much essential now, and it's also conversely often more difficult because we're not signing for things anymore. Your parcels are being put through the letterbox, they're left in porches or with neighbours and so forth, and there's some fairly innovative ways of people, of couriers, to prove, if you like, they can't prove it, but to prove that the parcel was left. This is an ongoing and developing situation, and there really isn't anything to, there's nothing definitive about that yet. It's still evolving. But for instance, eBay and Amazon, not Amazon so much, but eBay will protect to some extent by sellers who are sending through Royal Mail through tracked options. So that's one thing that's changed recently. And the thing about tracking is that if you don't send tracked, then you've got no chance of proving that it was delivered, and you have to refund if somebody complains. If it is sent tracked, you've got a much better chance of being able to prove that it was delivered, with or, well, without a signature, but with or without a photograph. There's lots of different things there. Options. This is about giving your buyers options. Most people, especially if there's a free postage option, most people will go for that one, and it'll take 3 days, 5 days to arrive. That's fine. But give them options. Give them options for click and collect, for instance, if that's possible. I've heard rumours that that's going to be suspended because of the COVID regulations. I don't know where we are with that. But as long as it's a possibility, that gives people options, especially for our essential service workers who perhaps are not in all day. Most people are in all day, but lots of people are not in all day, and they want the option to go and collect their parcel from a click and collect locker. Give them the option for express delivery, but charge extra for it because that's a convenience. So let's give them Royal Mail special delivery next day option and charge an extra £10 for it. Very few people will go for it, but the ones who really want it, that's the option for them. Packaging, I've not got on here packaging, but packaging is becoming increasingly important to buyers and consumers. And Amazon, of course, is the biggest culprit with this one. You know, tiny little things in great big boxes stuffed with lots of packaging. People don't like that. We're becoming much more eco-conscious now. So this can be of great importance to our buyers. I'd be a little bit cautious about using recycled goods. If they look like they're new, that's fine. But some people get quite queasy at the thought of their packaging being reused. So that's a difficult one to weigh up. It depends what you're selling, again. Fast delivery is more damaging to the environment because you've got more trucks on the road. So again, if you're not going to use that, that's something you could highlight to say that you've deliberately chosen not to offer express in order to minimize your carbon footprint. I'm not sure that goes down too well with consumers, but again, depends what you're selling. If you're selling vegan products, perhaps that works really, really well. So who bears the risk of non-delivery? The seller does. The contract between the seller and the courier, that was a question. If you buy a courier service, your buyer buys the item, their contract is with you to deliver that item, what they've bought. You then purchase a service from the courier to deliver that item. Your contract is with the courier, not with the buyer. The buyer has nothing to do with that. So if the parcel doesn't arrive, the buyer comes to you and says, where's my parcel? You go to the courier and say, where's the parcel? If it's disappeared or it's damaged, then that's not the buyer's fault. You refund the buyer and you claim off the courier because that's the way it works. You have the contract with the courier, which is another reason why you want to send it tracked and check your contract details with the courier to make sure that you are covered, because some things may not be covered, like glass, for instance, or perishables, or very expensive items. So again, as a seller, it is your responsibility to make sure that you know what's happening, but it's not the buyer's fault if it doesn't arrive. It's not yours either, but it's your responsibility. Okay, so customer focused. What do I mean by that? It means we look at seamless integration. It means we look at personalization, being mobile friendly, adding value, make it easy for buyers, and safety. So seamless integration means that exactly that. This may not be as possible now with the latest lockdown as it may be when we come out of lockdown. But what we're looking at here is something where you can browse online, possibly reserve something and go and pick it up, where you can go into a store and have it delivered to your house. The seamless integration. And this is best illustrated by something I've done recently, which is a good example is Argos. So you've got all your possibilities there with Argos. So you can browse online, you can buy online and have it delivered. You can browse and buy online and collect it from a bricks and mortar store. Not at the moment, I don't think, but normally you can go into Argos and browse on their screens and have it delivered. You've got all this seamless integration. On the other hand, with B&M stores, you can't buy online. You can look at everything they've got, but you can't actually purchase it. You have to go into the store and buy it, and they don't deliver. And what's really frustrating about that, this is something that happened to me recently, what's really frustrating is that you can't see which store has the item you want. So you can browse online, find the perfect item, and then say, okay, my nearest store is here. Have they got that item in stock? No way of knowing. You have to physically go into the store and say, have you got this item? Just doesn't work for buyers, does it? So we didn't buy it from B&M. We went on to somewhere else and got the Christmas tree with little lights on for my mother. And that was the one she wanted. And we ended up getting it from eBay. That's where I usually get all my stuff from. Personalization. This is about, as far as possible, trying to make your customers feel wanted and valued. This is a much easier thing to do if you've got your own website or you're selling through Facebook. eBay and Amazon don't allow you much contact with your buyers. Yeah, Marks and Spencer. Somebody's saying Marks and Spencer's offer a click and collect as well as in store. Yeah, you can click and collect through Asda and quite a few different places now. Amazon lockers as well. Anyway, personalization. So this is easier to do if you've got your own website or if you're selling through Facebook or Etsy. But Amazon, for instance, won't even allow you to put a packing slip in with your parcels to say, hello, valued customer or whatever. I wouldn't use that actual phrase, but you know what I mean. And then keeping in touch with your customers after that. If they've bought something from you once, there's a very good chance they'll buy from you again. So you want to send them newsletters, you want to send them emails, not to bombard them, but just to keep in touch, light touch, and let them know about sales and so forth. As much of a bespoke service as you can. Personalization is definitely a big thing and is going to get more. Being mobile friendly, 65% of sales are what they say touched by mobile. Now that means browsing on your phone, buying on your phone, browsing on your laptop and then buying on your phone, saving things and so on, which means that wherever you're selling, it has to be mobile friendly. It has to be, you don't want lots of options where people have to click onto other pages. People don't like clicking. They don't mind scrolling. So you can have one page with everything on it. I mean, not all your products, but one page with lots of things on it. People will happily scroll all the way down, scroll all the way back up again. They don't like to have to click, and then you can get lost easily. So you click on a link, takes you somewhere else, and then you can't find your way back. So that's irritating for buyers. So being mobile friendly is a really big deal as well. And that's going to increase. When we say mobile friendly, overwhelmingly people mean smartphones. They don't mean tablets or laptops, smartphones. And these are, you know, small things, small images, small text. It has to be easy to read. So add value. When you're selling products, how can you add value? Can you put in a how-to guide? Can you make a video that says this is how you use it? Can you offer expert advice? If you're selling pet food, this is the best pet food for small dogs. This is the best pet food for bigger dogs. Can you do home deliveries if you're selling birthday cakes locally, for instance? How can you add value and distinguish yourself above your competitors? That's more of a business issue, but adding value to things. Consumers are now expecting this kind of stuff. Then it depends what it is. Again, if it's something cheap and cheerful, if it's batteries, for instance, you don't have to have a how-to guide. But if it's something that you can add value to, then see how you can add value to it. Can you run competitions? That's more about social media. We'll come on to that in a moment. Make it easy. Just make it easy for your buyers. 38% of UK shoppers abandon a purchase online at least once a week. Why are they doing that? There's lots of reasons, and there's lots of research out there that will explain why. But one of the big things is that if you make people sign in and create an account before they've even seen what the delivery costs are, not having delivery costs, not having returns information, these are really big deals to buyers. So these are things that you need to make sure your website in particular is very clear about. If you don't have measurements on your clothing, if you sell clothing and you just say it's a size 10, then that's not good enough. You need to have the measurements, because a size 10 from Marks and Spencer's will be very different to a size 10 from Asda George, for instance. Safety. If again, this is particularly aimed at people who have their own websites. You need to have PayPal as a payment option, because that's a very well-known and well-recognized way to pay things. People know they're protected with PayPal. You need to have testimonials, you need to have reviews, you need to have social proof icons, and people will check. If you put a link into your Facebook account, they will check through and just see what's going on with Facebook. And if it's only had 3 posts, and that was 2 years ago, they start to lose trust. They start to think, oh, I'll go and look somewhere else. I go to Amazon. I know I'm protected on Amazon, for instance. You need to have contact information on there. If at all possible, can you have a phone number? You don't necessarily have to answer the phone every time it rings, but you could have an answering message and check your answering messages. And that way people are reassured that they can contact you easily. Almost a third of adults in the UK feel more vulnerable to fraudsters after the rise of internet shopping and banking during lockdown. That's an interesting example as well, quote, piece of data. And I think it also reflects, again, the fact that a lot of people have not been used to doing this. They have not been shopping online, they have not been banking online, and now they are, and they're not confident. So we need to reassure them that it's okay. And we do that through the way that I've just been saying. Yeah. Someone's saying that size 10 is a standard. I suspect you've not actually bought size 10 clothes from different retailers. Yeah. Okay, so that's customer focused. Social media, what's important? Good quality content, organic and paid is the best mix. Engagement is key, and don't forget the basics. So again, this is research that comes from eBay. It reveals, this is an enormous percentage, eBay research reveals that 98% of digital consumers, people that are buying online, are also social media users. That's really quite impressive, isn't it? Now, of course, there's different types of social media. Some people are on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or one of the other ones, but still, that's a lot. And 74% of people trust social media to guide their purchasing decisions. If you think about on Facebook, for instance, which is now apparently very old school, but on Facebook, how many times do you see questions people say, can anyone recommend? Can anyone recommend a plasterer? Can anyone recommend a cooker? Can anyone recommend where I can buy X, Y, or Z? And then people jump in and say here and there and not there and I wouldn't go there. Massive, massive impact. 55% of all buyers actively research on social network. That's another really interesting percentage, bearing in mind that this was research done by eBay, so that of course there's a slant there. Good quality content. So ever-growing social media has influenced the increase in online purchases, with 25% of people purchasing items online after seeing posts or comments by others. And younger shoppers and women have been the most influenced by this. And again, that makes sense because younger shoppers have grown up with social media, whereas older shoppers are perhaps much more wary and again, not confident. So this is all things to bear in mind when you're thinking about your business. Somebody else is asking, would like to ask where I can find help creating terms and conditions, refund, return policy templates, ensuring legally compliant. Again, there's a lot out there. One thing to bear, which, you know, if you Google template for terms and conditions UK or template for returns and so on, you need to be legally compliant, of course. One thing to bear in mind is that your terms and conditions can say one thing, but if you sell on eBay or Amazon or Etsy or not on the high street, you are subject to their rules, which will likely be much more stringent than the bare minimum UK. So you can't, if you're a business seller on eBay, for instance, you have to accept returns. There are no exceptions. Whereas within UK law, there are exceptions. There are exceptions for hygiene, there are exceptions for perishable goods, there are exceptions for various things. On eBay, that doesn't really matter. You can make sure that you don't have to refund people if you're an exception, but it's long-winded. So what I'm getting at is that you have to comply with UK law as a minimum. And then after that, if you're on the particular platform, you have to comply with their rules and regulations because, you know, it's their sandpit. They get to say what happens in it. So where were we up to? Good quality content. Yeah. So you can't get away with just putting something up and saying like and share this. It doesn't work so much anymore. You've got to, coming back to adding value, people expect a higher standard from everywhere these days, and social media is part of that. So organic and paid is the best mix. Organic works really, really well, but actually paid can also work in other circumstances. Now, this isn't my area, I'll be honest about this, but there's a few bits and pieces that I've picked up. Organic is really useful, but it's very difficult to cut across the enormous amount of information that you find on social media. And it's so fast, bang, bang, bang. Twitter is extremely fast. TikTok is extremely fast. Facebook, not so much, but still there's an enormous amount of content that you have to somehow get your head above, which can be difficult if it's organic. This is because Facebook is a paid advertising platform. That's how it makes its money. So it's not going to necessarily promote your organic content over its paid for advertising. So that's worth bearing in mind. You need to do some paid for advertising as well. Interesting bit of research as well. When asked where they had discovered products purchased online, this is among 18 to 25-year-olds, 32% of this demographic say they discovered online purchases via social media adverts, not organic content. So that's, again, depends on what you sell. But if your demographic is in those 18 to 25-year-olds, you really need to be advertising on Facebook, on social media, not just Facebook. So engagement is key. It's not just about putting stuff out there. You've got to get people to interact with it. You need to be doing things like running polls, competitions. Competitions work really, really well, as long as they're legitimate and there's something people actually want to buy. Again, it's not relevant at the moment, but once cafes are open, that can work extremely well, where you could say meal for two, just tell us what your favorite lasagna recipe is, or something like that. It doesn't really matter. And people are interested in that and they'll jump on and they want to win a meal for two. And that will really help you with your organic reach. Ask questions of people, run polls, say, I mean, I don't know, they really annoy me. So you've got to be careful not to make it too stupid. Things like, I'll bet you can't think of a name ending with the letter A. they're just silly, they irritate me. But if it's something that's a bit more interesting, I mean, if you've only got to think about how the dress went viral, you know, is it blue, is it grey, what colour is it? Woof, people loved that. And this is how feedback Facebook algorithms work, how they all work really, is they look at how interesting a post is. Are people interacting with it? Are people liking it, or are they just ignoring it? And it's a vicious circle. So if people are ignoring what you've put up, the social media platforms will demote it in importance because nobody's interested in it. And then if they don't see it, nobody's going to interact with it. So this is how they work. And don't forget the basics. Make it easy for people to buy. Don't just say we've got this new range of t-shirts in. Say, have a link there that says click here to buy it, and send the link to your Etsy shop or your Facebook, to your Facebook shop or to your website. You know, make it straightforward. Have your phone number on there, have your email, have a link to the website. Set it up properly. And I know that sounds really obvious, but I've seen an awful lot of businesses that don't do that because they don't see. You've always got to see things from your buyer's point of view. And that can be difficult when you've spent a lot of time seeing it from your point of view. So with that pearl of wisdom, I shall leave you. And Bethany, I've finished. I can't remember what I was going to say, but yeah, I've finished. And I don't think we've got any open questions.
No, that's been great. Thank you so much for joining us today, Laura. It's been so amazing.
Good. I'm glad you've liked it. I'm just trying to get myself off video now. Here we go. I found it.
And thank you to our audience for watching. If you did want to go back and rewatch any of today's webinar, it will be up on EM3 Growth Hub's YouTube page, along with all the other previous webinars. And next week we have a export masterclass, so make sure you attend that as well. Details are on the Growth Hub website. So see you next time.